You are listening to Mindset and Metabolism Mastery, episode 13. Is your belly fat stubborn? Nothing seems to whittle your middle. Do you feel like your waist is an ever-expanding inner tube? Chances are this belly fat is actually stress fat, and you can't lose stress fat in the same way. So let's talk about it. Welcome to Mindset and Metabolism Mastery, a show for women who are tired of feeling hopeless, defeated, and frustrated with their bodies and want to have more energy to show up every day as the best version of themselves. I'm holistic nutrition consultant Shannon Hagel, and I can help you reprogram your brain to create bulletproof consistency with ease and address your personal hormonal imbalances that are leading to weight gain. Life can feel a whole lot better with a body you love, delicious food, and a little wine. And I'm here to help you get there. Ready to lose weight and feel amazing in your body? Let's dive in. Welcome, friends. You have Shannon here, and yes, my voice sounds a little croaky. I have been struggling with this laryngitis for a few weeks now that just doesn't want to seem to go away. So we aren't going to wait for it to go away anymore. We are going to persist on with our podcast, and hopefully my voice isn't so croaky that you can still get the value out of it. Okay, so today we are going to dive into the world of stress fat. Now, why stress fat specifically and not just fat in general? Well, stress fat behaves differently than other kinds of fat and really likes to hang out right around your midsection. So unless you're actively working towards an apple shape instead of an hourglass shape, this typically is an area of concern for the women I work with privately in the Thrive Formula, my weight loss program for women over 35. And because of the hormonal shifts that us women start to experience as early as our mid-30s, stress fat actually becomes a bigger and bigger player in the game. So if the things that used to work for you in your 20s are suddenly no longer working for you anymore, this should be an area you really start to look at. First off, let's talk about how women's bodies store stress fat. You've probably heard of cortisol, right? It's your primary stress hormone produced by your adrenal glands. And your adrenal glands are these tiny but mighty little organs that sit on top of your kidneys. So when you're stressed, your body goes into a fight or flight mode. Cortisol comes to play. Now, in our caveman era, this was super useful for surviving immediate dangers, like running from a saber-toothed tiger, right? Real world problems. Because it really increased our energy and our focus, allowing us to escape. And for my fellow A-type personality besties, we kind of thrive on this intense kind of energy, right? We love feeling focused and productive. So we become a little addicted to setting up our life in a way that keeps us in this state. But this fight or flight response was actually only meant for these acute, life-threatening situations, not to be in all day. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Cortisol doesn't just impact the stress response to save us from a crisis. It also influences where we store fat. Typically, under stress, women tend to store more fat around their belly. This belly fat, also known as visceral fat, isn't just about our genes feeling a little bit snug. It's metabolically active, which is a fancy way of saying that it's not just sitting there idly like an old couch potato, right? It's more like an overzealous workaholic office mate that's constantly busy and impacting the things around it. So it doesn't just cause you to feel shitty in your skin because you're self-conscious about your belly. It starts to actually increase your risk of heart disease, diabetes, all these other health issues, right? Because belly fat is not just hanging out at the party all alone. It usually brings a whole bunch of friends with it. Fatigue, sleep disruptions, so either troubles falling asleep or trouble staying asleep. So you're waking up between 2 and 4 in the morning. You're tired, but wired at night. Like you could have a nap at 7 p.m., but by the time 10 p.m. rolls around, you've got this second wind. Also nonstop cravings, weight gain, anxiety, poor immunity, digestive issues, inability to handle stress, reliance on caffeine. Like you can't get going unless you've got that cup of joe. Dizziness or headaches, low libido, to name just, a few. And that's because belly fat isn't caused by some missing magic calorie mark. It is a symptom. It's caused by these hormones that control everything in your body. So it's a double whammy, driving you to want to shove yourself into all the shapewear and destroying your health all in one shot. Now, this wouldn't be a problem if your stress was from the occasional saber-toothed tiger attack. But that's not the case, right? In our modern life, this response gets triggered by traffic jams, work deadlines, even an annoying text message. So your body has not evolved at the pace that our society has, right? For most of our human existence, food scarcity was one of the biggest threats to our survival. So the body will always go into this fat storage state when it feels threatened, when it feels unsafe. Your body thinks that it is keeping you safe. It thinks that it is helping by hoarding all these resources, literally food around your belly. And it's important to remember this because these imbalances did not happen overnight. You did not create this stress belly fat by eating one too many donuts this weekend. This is why it doesn't respond when you cut your calories back or up your workouts for a couple of weeks. It requires permanent life shifts and healing. But the wonderful news is that when you bring your hormones back into balance, you see these massive positive changes in all of these areas, not just the belly fat, right? We see improvements in fatigue, sleep, cravings, weight loss, anxiety, immunity, digestion, your ability to handle stress, eliminating that reliance on caffeine, improvements in dizziness, headaches, and libido, like all of the things. Because stress fat is just a symptom of something deeper going on. Now, your body can't tell the difference between an actual physical threat and a perceived threat, so a mental, emotional one. And since your body thinks it's preparing for this epic battle, right, to run for dear life, it needs resources. But using fat to fuel our energy is just too much work in an urgent situation. When our body is in fight or flight, it wants fast resources. And it takes longer and uses more resources to turn fat into energy. So cortisol, that stress hormone, does two things. It pulls sugar from your muscles and liver for that quick, easy to access energy, which then spikes your blood sugar levels. And it also impairs insulin sensitivity. Your body actually needs more of that fat storage hormone, insulin, to get the job done. So even if you haven't been mowing down on chips and chocolate, your blood sugar and your fat storage potential are driven up by this hormonal imbalance of cortisol. Now, this causes another chain reaction because the cells are now starving. The insulin is not getting the sugar into the cells fast enough because that cortisol, remember, is blocking it. So a signal is actually sent out to your brain to trigger your hunger and craving cues. The body thinks, ooh, we're not getting enough sugar to deal with the problem, so let's go straight to the source and get some of those blood sugar spiking carbs. Often the women I work with believe that they don't have enough self-control, right? Weak willpower or no restraint. But really, these imbalanced hormones are causing a biological chain reaction. So if your body is in a chronic state of stress, the nutrition is irrelevant. Now, I know many of you don't think that you are stressed, right? But stress takes many, many different forms in the body. They're the physical stressors that you might not even be aware of. You don't even know that they're going on, right? Things like inflammation, other hormonal imbalances, alcohol, drugs, medications, even the prescribed ones. Lack of sleep is a huge stressor on the body. Toxin exposure, food sensitivities, slow functioning digestive systems, infections, right? Being overweight in itself is a stressor on the body. Low fat or no carb diets, disruptions to your circadian rhythms, blood sugar imbalances, even root canals, fasting, under-eating, over-exercising, right? These three things that are our go-tos when we're trying to lose weight, when we're trying to deal with the belly fat in the first place, are actually causing more stress on the body. And then there are the mental and emotional stressors, the media, Instagram, right? The text message, the comment or tone that your teen gave you, deadlines, traffic, bills, the thoughts you have about your body, the beliefs you have about the world, your manual for how you think others should behave. So it can be coming from many, many different places. Some of the most common stress triggers that I see with my clients are not getting enough sleep, right? Skipping sleep, not getting those Z's can increase cortisol levels. It's a vicious cycle. Because more stress usually equals less sleep equals more stress, right? Overdoing high intensity exercise is another big trigger. Excessive or high intense exercise will actually increase those cortisol levels. Not a problem if your body can handle it, but when we're in those chronic states of stress, we're literally telling our body that it needs to be constantly running away from that tiger. So we never actually get the chance to bring that stress level down. And then that third one, right? The crash diets, the harsh diets that stress out your body, restricting too many calories or avoiding specific macronutrients that your body needs is going to increase that cortisol, ironically making it harder to lose weight. So beyond those three main triggers, why does this become an even bigger issue for women after the age of 35 or 40? So like I mentioned earlier, the adrenals are responsible for producing that stress hormone cortisol, but they also play a role in the production and the formation of an estrogen called estrone. So after your mid-30s, the ovaries start to produce less and less estrogen, and the body starts relying more on the adrenals for hormone production. So it's like a backup generator kicking in when the main power source is down. But here's the catch. If your adrenals are already overworked due to stress, physical or mental, they're going to struggle with this extra load. If your adrenals are constantly churning out cortisol, and then you have the added extra demand, like compensating for those declining ovarian hormones, it's like asking an overworked employee to do overtime every day. They're not going to be happy. In fact, they're probably going to be pissed. This constant demand can lead to what's sometimes referred to as adrenal fatigue. And while that's not an official medical diagnosis, the concept is used to describe a situation where the adrenals are struggling to keep up with the body's demands. Also, as we get older, we tend to have extended exposure to toxins, right? More life stress, more responsibilities. We tend to hold roles of seniority in our jobs. We often have all the other humans that we are responsible for and all of their stress on top of ours. It becomes seemingly impossible to shed the extra layer, especially because the things that you used to do to drop the extra just perpetuate the issue, right? If your cortisol is out of whack, calorie restriction, intermittent fasting, cutting out carbs, and increasing your exercise can all perpetuate the imbalance of cortisol, leading to even more weight gain and more belly fat storage instead of less, right? That's stress fat response. And there's nothing more stressful than putting in all this work and getting the opposite result that you're working towards. We need to eat a nutrient-dense diet that feeds our adrenals, not starve them. But we want those things to also be in alignment with keeping that blood sugar stable. Waiting too long to eat in the morning or choosing blood sugar spiking foods like oatmeal or toast or cereal or shakes with no real substance to them like protein and fat, right? Not getting enough hormone building nutrients. All of these things are going to stress out the body, leading to more cortisol disruption and belly fat accumulation. Now, there is absolutely a time and a place for intermittent fasting. It can be an incredible tool in the right body. But if you are struggling with stress fat, it is going to cause more harm and you are not going to reap the benefits from it. Another thing you really want to prioritize to reduce this stress fat is getting adequate sleep. It is necessary because it is when the body repairs, rebuilds, and regulates itself. Now, I know some of you might feel like your sleep quality is completely out of your control at this point, especially from hormonal changes. But then working with a practitioner who knows how to support that hormonal health so that you can get back to sleeping through the night is critical. And of course, when talking about stress fat, the top solution is going to be to deal with the stress, right? Which I know is easier said than done. Stress management is not just about finding an extra hour to meditate every day. If you like that and that works for you, great, have at her. But that's just one very small tool in a very large toolkit. The first thing you want to do is actually look at removing as many of the stressors as you can that are contributing to your overall load, right? Both the physical and the mental, right? Reducing inflammatory foods like trans fats or low quality vegetable oils, sugars, processed meats, packaged foods. This is huge. Delegating is the other one, right? For the mental, emotional. What are the things that you do that you actually don't need to be doing? Be really honest with yourself. This is the place that I find women especially have the hardest time with. We take on so much. And then we tell ourselves that we have to do these things. But what can you actually delegate to someone else? Either someone in your family or hire someone to do it instead. And then what are the things that you need to let go of? Does the dishwasher actually have to be loaded in that very specific way? Is it actually okay to just cut off ties with that toxic friend that you don't actually enjoy being around? Can you prioritize your sleep over making sure that all the dishes in the sink are cleaned? Right? There's so many things that you are doing that don't actually need to be done. Then when you've gotten some of this stuff off your plate, then you can start looking at what kind of supports you can actually add to help your body to better handle the stressors that we can't or are not willing to get rid of, right? Things like meditation, deep breathing, vagus nerve work, grounding work, adaptogen herbs, increasing the low impact movement throughout your day, exposing yourself to direct sunlight daily, laughing. There's so many things that you can do to support your body's stress response. And you only need to start with one, right? Typically, my high stress, high functioning individuals like myself hear this list and they're like, okay, I'm going to check all those boxes. I'm going to do all the things and add it to all the things that I'm already doing that I'm not willing to delegate or let go of, right? The first step is to let go of the things that are negatively impacting your stress response first. Right? You don't have to let go of everything, but downgrade some of those things. And then we build ourselves back up with one or two of the things on this list. Remember, perimenopause and menopause are a natural phase of life that all women who live long enough will go through. And your body starts to prepare for this time as early as your mid-30s by starting these shifts and changes. So you will start to see these ripple effects well before you lose your period. But understanding and supporting your body through this transition can really help you mitigate a lot of these impacts, like this stress fat storage. All right, my loves, I will see you in next week's episode. You have a beautiful rest of your day. If you enjoyed today's show and don't want to worry about missing an episode, you can follow the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you haven't already, I would really appreciate it if you could share the podcast with others who you think might benefit from it and leave a rating and review to let me know what you think. It doesn't have to be a 5-star rating, although I sure hope that you love the show. I want your honest feedback so I can create an awesome podcast that provides tons of value. Visit www.thrivefromtheinside.com/podcast launch for step-by-step instructions on how to follow, rate, and review. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Mindset and Metabolism Mastery. If you want to learn more about balancing your hormones, repairing your metabolism, and losing weight with empowerment and ease, visit www.thrivefromtheinside.com. I'll see you next time.